This is the Mission Matters Podcast Show, where our goal is to engage, encourage, and equip Christians to live on mission daily. To learn more about the show, visit our Facebook page at facebook.com/missionmatters.org or sign up for our newsletter online at missionmatters.org. And now, without further ado, let's listen in to today's conversation.
I'm here with Charlie Zahari, and he's actually going to start a brand new ministry for 2015. So what's pretty exciting about this is that this is something that's been on your heart for how long?
It's been on missions in general, and how I fit into God's plan has been on my mind since I became a Christian, which is what we're going to talk about here. But this Mission Matters concept and idea, it's probably only been 6 months, maybe. The name of the ministry is Mission Matters, and the reason we came up with that name is I went on a mission that changed my life. We went into the Amazon jungle, and when I got back, I was like, man, I could do that my whole life, but I got bills to pay and mortgage, so it probably wouldn't make a lot of sense for me to drop everything and go be a missionary, and my wife probably appreciates me staying here. So I thought, well, is there something out there that doesn't cost too much money, doesn't take so much of my time that I can't be a good husband and a good dad? And so just thinking about things, kind of came up with this idea of creating a website and talking to interesting people and sharing their story of what God's doing in their life while they're on mission, and maybe encouraging people to figure out new ways to be on mission without, moving to Kenya.
I love that concept. It's so essentially it's almost like a collection of conversations about what God's doing in people's lives. And that can be used as a platform to inspire people, to encourage them to start their own mission wherever they may be at. God has planted you here in the Murrieta area. Mm-hmm. Kind of share your story of how you got here, about your life. I'm sure you woke up and you were born a Christian, right? You just automatically were perfect and you walked on water. Is that kind of the story?
You were there?
Yeah, I was there.
Yeah. That's cool. Yeah, that's true. No, it's not true at all. So I actually grew up in a home that we would call ourselves Christian. But probably no one would know that we were great people. My dad is like black and white, moral dude, awesome guy. Mom's the same way. But church to us was probably Easter and Christmas maybe, and we definitely weren't talking about it. My dad is like a natural born leader, 6'7", 220 pounds, lifts weights twice a day. Like, he walks into a room and you know immediately who the leader is. He's just the alpha dog type guy. Mm-hmm. So at a very young age, I took a liking to baseball, and it was pretty apparent that I was kind of naturally gifted to throw a baseball pretty hard. And because of my dad's leadership abilities, and he had a unique, he actually broke his back in 1984, and I was born in 79, so you do the math, I was pretty young. And because of that, he had a disability that wouldn't allow him to go back to work. So I was in a unique position where I had both a mom and a dad at home full time. And but the cool thing is my dad was still able to be a baseball coach, and those leadership skills were really useful in that arena. So from a very young age, I had a dad who was 100% in on me getting good. So baseball quickly became my God and probably our God. Had some good coaching through high school, and the scouting just wasn't really running to Hemet. So I didn't have a whole lot of opportunities, and the whole college scene, my parents didn't go to college. We didn't really understand, what it takes to get into a college that you actually kind of have to market yourself. Like, I don't even think I applied. I was just clueless.
Right.
And fortunately, my high school coach made a few phone calls for me, and I got a chance to go to Cal Baptist. Mm-hmm. So by the time I got to Cal Baptist, I accepted that because I didn't have any other options. And so I rolled into Cal Baptist and was thinking that I was a pretty good baseball player. And when I got there, I didn't think they were quite good enough for me. And so
pride before the fall.
Yeah, I didn't know about that either. So I go there, I'm going to the chapel. I have no idea what they're talking about. I'm sitting in the back of the chapel, probably doing things that are absolutely opposed to God in the back of the chapel. And there was other guys on the team that were similar. But long story short, I was pretty convinced that that school was not good enough for me. And lo and behold, I get a phone call from a buddy of mine who was playing in Missouri at the University of Central Missouri, and they had just lost a pitcher and they needed another pitcher. And I said, you know what? This place is not good enough for me, and I would really like an opportunity to go and see if I fit into that staff there. On a whim, I jump on a plane, fly to Missouri, throw a bullpen for University of Central Missouri, and the coach says, we'd like to have you. And I say, okay. And I call my parents, and they ship all my stuff out to Missouri, and I start going to school out there. So I completely just kind of, I can't even remember how that transition went. I'm sure it was wrong, what I did. And I kind of just left that team and showed up in Missouri. At this point, not only am I not checking in with God, I'm probably starting to question the existence of God.
Wow.
I'm moving God into kind of like an adult Santa Claus category at this point in my life. So I go and I play baseball at the University of Central Missouri, and I think I was there for like a year and a half, and nothing stellar. I didn't do anything great. It was a great experience for me because the coach there was ex-military and absolutely didn't care if life was fair or not. So I got to see what it was like to be pushed to extremes, and one of the greatest experiences of my life was to realize how much further we can go. We think our wall is at a certain point. It is so much past that point. It's amazing. And that's a freeing thing to know that the way that we've been wired, we can do amazing things, and our mind has a huge impact on what we think our potential is. So kind of got me to stretch past my comfort zone, got me in just kind of the right state of mind to be successful, I think. So long story short, again, I got a lot of crazy stories. God has really moved in my life even when I didn't know he was there. But I came back for a summer vacation, so school was over for the summer break, and my dad shows me this article in the newspaper that was in Costa Mesa. There was a wood bat league, and he's like, you're not doing anything, you need to stay in shape. If I were you, I'd go out there. So I went out there, showed up, and like all the teams were already picked, and I was just this random dude like strolling up to the field, and I said, you got any room on any of these teams? And they're like, well, these teams were picked a long time ago, but I guess you can practice with us or something. So anyway, I went and I practiced with him, and I don't know what happened, but God decided I was going to start throwing ridiculously hard. So that summer I did amazing, and I was throwing low to mid 90s, and I was dominating. I've never played that good in my life, probably. Wow. And one of the games that I was at, after the game, one of the umpires came up to me and asked me where I played, and I told him I played at University of Central Missouri. And he said, why? And I said, what do you mean why? He's like, all the best schools in the nation are right here in your backyard. I said, I'm from Hemet. And he said, oh, I understand. And anyway, he's like, do you mind if I make a couple phone calls, and when do you pitch next? So I told him when I pitch next, and I said, go ahead. So the next time I pitched, I get up to the mound, and the whole stands are filled with scouts.
Wow.
I had scouts from Loyola Marymount, USC, UCLA, Cal State Fullerton, Long Beach State, Pepperdine.
No pressure.
Exactly.
No pressure. Right.
So, I mean, every conceivable, and I played off like I was, obviously they would all be there. So anyway, I threw that game, and actually I don't think that I had the greatest game in the world, but I was still throwing hard and good enough where you could tell they were very interested. And I decided I was going to go play for Loyola Marymount on a full ride scholarship. So I believe that school was like $40,000 a year. And the reason I wanted to go there was because I was considering law school as well, and it's got a really good law program. So I decided that's the route I'm going to go, and then lo and behold, I get a letter in the mail from the NCAA saying, hey, you're not allowed to transfer from one NCAA school to another. You were suspended for a season. And so when that letter goes over to the coaches at Loyola, they say, hey, that's not good, and worse than that, you can't get that scholarship. So the wind's knocked out of my sails. We're not in a financial situation to just drop 40 G's on and I don't even know what FAFSA means, so it wasn't even conceivable. So kind of make a rash decision to take a cheap, good baseball school, which was Cal State Fullerton. So from there, the way that I got there was completely crazy. I don't think it's not a reproducible way to get into NCAA Division I baseball, but at the time I didn't realize it, but God was definitely working. Worked through that year, have a great the next summer league season I played for the Santa Barbara Foresters, which are right now the number one. You got the Alaska League, Cape Cod League, all those leagues. Santa Barbara, I believe, has won it 3 years in a row. So the best wood bat league out there. And I have a phenomenal summer preparing me for my first year at Fullerton. So move into Fullerton, and to make it real simple, I never lived up to my expectations for baseball. And I think a lot of that had to do with me having this feeling that I was in complete control of my destiny. And that is a heavy, heavy burden. And I just wasn't equipped to handle that burden. But, my name got into some cool publications, and I was on the radar of being the up-and-coming guy, and I was going to be, in the rotation of the best baseball team in the nation and all that type of stuff. So the potential of being, my dreams, I didn't even dream these dreams, but the ability to play Major League Baseball and be a millionaire playing a game, that was I wasn't too far away from that point. And at this point, I am now openly mocking Christians. So there was a handful of Christians that were on our baseball teams. We played against Athletes in Action, and I actually pitched in that game. And I told the first batter that Jesus wasn't going to help him today. I don't know what that was, why I was going down that road. In your heart, huh? Yeah, I don't know why I was going down that road. And then a really cool thing, well, I didn't know it was cool at the time, but a guy from Biola, which is an evangelical Christian university on the coast in California, transfers to Cal State Fullerton. So he's coming.
So God's making some moves here on the chessboard.
Yeah, so he's coming to Cal State Fullerton. So why weren't you already here? If you were good enough, why were you ever at Biola? So I didn't quite get that. Normally you didn't get a transfer from a 4-year university coming to our university. And he was a shortstop. His name's David Munoz. And something about this guy, more life in one person that I had ever seen, this zeal, doesn't do stupid things, works harder than anyone at his craft, he doesn't have all the best giftedness, but he works harder than anyone on the field. And so one day we were at the gym, one early morning we were at the gym. So at the end of the workout, David says, "Hey guys, Bible study at my house, tomorrow night. Parents will be making all the food. Everyone's welcome." And he got laughed at. We were a bunch of guys who all thought we were going to be millionaire baseball players. Last thing we needed was God.
Because you're your own God.
Oh, absolutely. At this point, yeah. Cal State Fullerton only had a baseball team that was, there was no football team, basketball team wasn't that great, so we were it on campus too. So not only did we have the potential to be big league baseball players, but we had a lot of attention on campus too. So at that point, we didn't need that. So I don't know what it was, but I decided to go to this Bible study.
Really?
Yeah, wow. Crazy.
Okay.
So I'm driving to this Bible study. I'm like, what am I doing? This is awkward. And
That's the Holy Spirit right there.
I'm not a social person anyway, so it's not like I just want to go hang out and talk. So anyway, I pull into his house, beautiful house. I get out. He lives with his parents, so it's at his parents' house, and in Yorba Linda. And I get out and I go knock on the door and I open it up, and I think I was a little bit late and not one person was there. So I get in there and I look, and David's mom, Jackie, nicest lady on the face of the earth, had made food, authentic Mexican. I love eating at their house. I'm looking forward to they have a tamale night every Christmas. It's the highlight of my Christmas. So this food set out for 30 guys. No one. I'm the only person that showed up that night. So when you have that weird, awkward feeling where you walk in and you're embarrassed for somebody.
Right.
Yeah, I had that feeling. So I walk in, immediately I'm embarrassed for them. I don't know what I'm doing there. And I look at him, and he looks at me, same stupid smile he's always got on his face. His parents are happy that one person showed up. Honestly, they'll figure out a way to get rid of the food. It's not a big deal. And he says, "So what do you want to do? Eat first or do the Bible study first?" I was like, "Let's get the Bible out of the way." So takes me up into this loft that they have at their house, and he hands me a Bible, and he's got his Bible, and he's like, what do you know about this book? And I was like, it's long. I've tried to read some of it. I get to like the 30th chapter, I think, of Genesis, and then I fall asleep, and I have no idea what it's about. He's like, that's cool. He's like, how about Jesus? What do you know about Jesus? I was like, good guy, did a lot of cool stuff, something on a cross. I don't quite get what that was about, and that's a good guy. He's like, okay. So he takes me to John. It's funny, when I ask him to this day, he doesn't even remember where he took me in the Bible, but it's like the biggest story for me. So he takes me to John, and he has me read some of it. In the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God, and the Word came and dwelt amongst us. He's like, so what's that talking about? I was like, I have no idea. And he's like, so he takes me through Scripture, and he shows me that Jesus and the Word is the same thing.
Right.
So he proves that to me with the Bible, and I was like, okay, yeah, I get that. He's like, so now reread it. So in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, and came and dwelt amongst us. He's like, so now what does it say? It's like, it's saying that Jesus was God. And everyone's got their own thing, but when that clicked in this brain of mine, I was like, I believed immediately. I don't know what it was.
That's a holy staff.
I don't know what it was, but I came upstairs one person who was openly mocking Christians at this point and was radically, like, doesn't make sense, changed on the way down those stairs. I was like, completely different person. So,
story of Paul right there.
Yeah, so like it doesn't even make sense. Like I tell people that story and they're like, oh, okay, yeah, we knew that Christianity was claiming that Jesus was God. I was like, I didn't know that, and I wish someone would have told me earlier. And I bet someone did tell me earlier, but God needed me to know at that time. So immediately leaving there, and the way that I'm wired, I want to climb ladders all the time. So that didn't go away from day one. So I decided, like, I didn't even know who Greg Glory was, but if I would have wanted to be him when I walked out that door, right? So I become like the weird team evangelist dude. And
so this is almost instantaneous.
Oh, instantaneously.
Wow.
Yeah, absolutely. Like when we went down, so the light bulb that went on allowed me to understand Scripture. So like when we went downstairs, like I was just going through the Word and I was like getting all of it. I was like, the world makes sense now. Right. Everything makes sense now. Like I remember leaving and like calling my grandmother and telling her that, no, seriously, Grandma, I understand the way the world works now. Like it all makes sense. So this weird freedom came about, and I think it was for the first time I realized that I never had control. I'm not currently in control, and I won't have control. But there's a God that's for real, that is in control. So now I don't have to worry about that stuff. There was a reason why God was preparing me at the time that he was preparing me. So shortly after that, and I'm starting to get fuzzy on the time tables now, but very shortly after that, I was pitching in a game against a Christian university. It was like a preseason game against a local Christian university. And I was the starting pitcher. And at the baseball field, and left field line is where the bullpen was at, all the way down the left field line. So you would warm up there, and then right before the game starts, you'd make your walk towards the dugouts. So I warmed up, and I was making my walk, and because we were Cal State Fullerton, people pretended like we were famous, so all the kids come running down, and so I'm signing autographs, and we had baseball cards, so they like have my baseball card, or they have a ball, so I'm like signing stuff. I'm like, I'm awesome. And every once in a while there would be Superfan, right? So Superfan, he's not an individual, he's a type of person who grows up and never grows up. So he's 40 years old at a baseball game with his baseball glove on, and he wants me, the 20-year-old, to sign his baseball glove. So that day, Superfan comes down, wants my autograph, so I sign it. And he's like, hey, man, I knew your dad, he's a good guy. I was like, really? You're from Michigan? And because my dad's from Michigan. He's like, no, I'm from Riverside. I was like, I don't think you know my dad. He's like, no, I do. Good guy. I was like, all right, Superfan. And I went back to the dugout. But something caught my attention in how much he thought he was right in what he was saying. And Jackie, I missed this part. So Jackie and, so David's mom, Jackie, and his dad, Nacho Munoz, they have this beautiful big house in Yorba Linda, and they're like, hey, we got an extra room. If you want to come see what it's like to live in a Christian home, you're more than welcome. So I took that opportunity. The greatest thing to ever happen to me probably was to see Christianity really lived out. So these people are on mission. So I move in with them, and I mean, they're my second mom and dad. Amazing people. They're at the baseball game. My parents were not at the baseball game because my grandfather in Michigan was dying of pancreatic cancer. So they were with him. And I wave Jackie down. She's at the game, and I say, hey, can you go sit next to Superfan and just strike up a conversation with him and see? He told me this thing, and I don't know what it is, but it's weird to me. So anyway, she goes over there, and she talks to him. And after the game, she comes down. She's like, you might want to talk to him. She's like, he knew some stuff. He's like, I don't know where it's going to go, but you might want to talk to him. So anyway, after the game, I watch him because the field's elevated, like on the home plate side, and you have to walk down into the parking lot. So I kept my eye on him, and I could see him walking down, and you can open up the left field fence and go into the parking lot. So I watched him open up the left field fence and met him in my uniform standing in the parking lot by his car, and he is uncomfortable. I was like, hey, I need to know what you were talking about. He's like, you know what, I shouldn't have said anything. I don't know what I was doing. And he kind of had like this vibe, like he just never grew up. So we're talking, and I'm like, dude, you got to give me your information. I'm going to take down your information. You're saying things. And long story short, he finally breaks down. He's like, I shouldn't have said anything. I knew your dad. He was a good guy, and he died.
Wow.
So I'm sitting in this parking lot.
That's goosebumps right there.
I'm sitting in this parking lot at like 11 o'clock. It was like a late game. It's like 11 o'clock, and I got this super fan that I don't know if he's on drugs. I have no idea what he's talking about, but for some reason, something's telling me what this guy is saying, there might be some truth to it. So, I'm not going to call my parents who are at my grandfather's deathbed to say, hey, So what I do is I call my grandmother, my mother's mom, who lives in San Jacinto, and she's not expecting a call at 11 o'clock from her grandson, but she picks up. And so she picks up, she's like, hey, what's going on? And I was like, hey, I just got a question for you. And she's like, okay, go ahead. I was like, I just want to know, is my dad my real dad? And there was this long, awkward pause, followed by some crying. So I was pretty sure that Superfan might be onto something at this point. So that night at 11:30 or so, I'm talking to my grandmother in the parking lot of Cal State Fullerton baseball, and my grandmother is explaining to me how my biological father my mom was married to him. He got really sick and he died. And my mom decided that the best thing for us was to just move on because she didn't want to have to explain it to a kid. Mm. So you could imagine what the average guy off the street, if he finds this out at 20 something years old. So the guy that I worship, my dad, the leader, strong coach, black, white, honest guy, in that moment I got to experience the peace of God that surpasses all understanding, right? So Scripture promises that. I got to experience it, and it probably strengthened my faith more than anything was that moment, because I could see it. I can kind of reflect back to who I was before, and what that would have done. I probably would not have reacted really well. Yeah. And I didn't, as a Christian, and having the Spirit of God in me, I not even for a second was I upset, amazed at God. So now I'm like, hold on a second. So I was from Hemet. I went Hemet to Cal Baptist, from Cal Baptist to Missouri, from Missouri to Loyola, from Loyola to Cal State Fullerton. I shouldn't have been on the platform that I was at. It made no sense. I didn't have the career, the $1 million career. It wasn't happening at this point. My arm was starting to fail. So what was it? Why? It was for this one, God was preparing me to hear this truth And he didn't want it to shatter me. He wanted it to strengthen me. So now I'm living with this family who's like fully engaged on mission in life. So I have this like crazy support system who they're not even like, they're like, we need to pray about this. Like, they're not freaking out, which is great. I don't like people freaking out. That freaks me out. And we just kind of talk our way through this thing. And I didn't even tell my parents didn't find out for like 6 months. Like, I couldn't come up with a good way to explain it to them. Because I got all this guy's information, I was able to follow up with him. And through that, I was able to get in contact with my biological dad's parents. And they call me on the phone, my grandmother, and I don't even think she could put together like 2 sentences, just starts crying uncontrollably. So we set up a time to meet, and they had lived on an orange grove, like over by Lake Matthews.
Okay.
For years and years and years and years and years. And the reason why they lived there for years and years and years and years was because they were worried that if they moved, I wouldn't be able to find them.
Wow. Man.
And finally it got to the point where they were getting up there in years and they couldn't manage, like it was a full-blown orange grove.
Right.
Like they couldn't manage it anymore. So they like had to let it go. And it was like their biggest fear was like they were just letting go the thing that that was going to get me back to them, because they knew who I was, they knew where I was. They were simply listening to my mother's request. I go and I meet them, and how do you describe that? So my grandmother and my grandfather, and my grandmother her goal is to make sure I know that they never forgot about me. So she takes me into this room, and in the room is like every yearbook with me in it ever, every newspaper article clipping ever, because I played sports, I was in the news often. So she cut it all out. Pictures of me playing in Missouri. They flew to Missouri and sat in the stands and watched me play.
Holy incredible. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
My biological dad was one of 8. They're a good Irish Catholic family. By the way, Zahari, I love that name. I'm proud of that name. It represents a lot to me. But it might make a little bit more sense that I was born with the name McCarthy.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm looking a little more Irish than Romanian, Egyptian. But I'm very proud of both of those names. So that was phase 1, meet with grandparents you didn't know existed. Phase 2, meet with the rest of the family. So they move into this place in Corona, and they put together like this reunion for me. So at this time, me and Shauna are together, my wife. So she goes with me. And so she's my strength in this, because I'm not a social person. So this is all really, really weird to me, but I want to see what God's up to. So I roll into this place, and they literally had name tags on their shirts. So all my cousins and my aunts and my uncles who I've never met, this first time I'm meeting them, like, I think there was like 5,000 people there. Like,
felt like overwhelming, right?
It was like probably like 35, 40 people, So meeting all of it, and this really stands out to me, is that when I said kids would come down and get autographs signed. Well, my whole family was going to all of my games for my entire career. I mean, these people from high school all the way through college, they were in the stands. I just didn't know it.
Wow.
So my cousins had baseballs with my autograph. So I literally had talked to my cousins. I had signed autographs for them, and I'd hand them the ball. So just an amazing,
That's incredible.
What God was doing, and how I never found out about all of those years with people right there. And the guy who told, I don't even know his name. I don't even know.
Superfan.
Superfan. Superfan was a friend of the family who heard about the story, because it was, unfortunately, my father died he was bipolar, and he took his own life.
Okay.
So it was a horrific thing, and the McCarthys were a pillar in the community. My grandfather was like the principal of the high school. They were a known group of people. So this wasn't a story that just disappears. Right. This was a good, hard, solid family who had a tragedy take place.
Wow.
So the story obviously got out there, and how it never got to me, that's God. I had this conversation with the Munozes who took me in, and they were like, you know what? Sometimes God makes a donkey talk. And that's exactly what he did. He took some guy who everyone stuck with their vow. The McCarthy family never said a word to me because they respected what my mom had to say. They just followed from a distance, you know? And there came a day when this random dude, who no one gets to be mad at because we don't even know who he is, opens his mouth and
alters everything.
Just completely changes everything. So long story short, you know, God walked with me for a very, very long time. He allowed me to say stupid things about him. And he used a person living on mission, just a kid playing shortstop for a baseball team, who, by the way, says that he felt God was calling him to Cal State Fullerton simply to share the gospel with somebody.
With someone.
I mean, he stepped out of his beautiful comfort zone, came to Cal State Fullerton with a bunch of clowns, just to get laughed and mocked at, and to share the gospel with some random dude who was the only. So if you ever put together a Bible study and one dude shows up, you'd be cool with that, because I was the one dude who showed up. He was not like he even had a plan. When I asked him, he doesn't even remember what he shared with me, but he shared exactly what I needed to hear, and from that, God radically blows my mind, changes who I am, and puts me in a position to be able to accept a truth that would totally rock the average person. A couple years after that, they do family reunions, and we're like hundreds and hundreds of people get into a room, and all McCarthy'd out.
Good.
And it's in Montana. So we drive up to Montana. This is my first reunion, and yeah, I'm the guy that everyone's like, oh, that's the guy over there. So I'm walking around. I don't even think I'm exaggerating with 200. It might have been more. Everywhere I go, eyes on me. So we have this dinner. And my grandfather is like the patriarch of the McCarthy clan in this area, and just an amazing dude. My grandmother, they're all amazing people. And so we get up on the stage, and my grandfather starts it off, and each clan comes up. So it's like our clan. So I'm up there with our clan, and the microphone goes, and he says something, and goes down. And my aunt's sitting next to me, and she decides she's going to try to talk about how thankful she is about me, more or less, and just starts bawling. And so I take the microphone from her. And I just remember being able to say, hi, my name's Charlie. You guys probably know me. I don't know you. And just to be able to sit there and say, you know what, this is an example to see that in the midst of really, really bad, tragic things, good things can come of them. And not only that, I know you people have been praying for me your entire life, and God answers prayers. Agnostic, maybe atheist, I don't know, kid, drug him into a position where some Protestant kid tells him the gospel and then throws him into a Catholic family.
That has a great sense of humor.
Seriously. So what I believe at the bottom of my heart is it's great to be on mission. When you're on mission, you see things that you couldn't see otherwise. God is working. We just don't see it a lot of times because we're not on his path.
Yeah.
It's the power of the gospel. Right. The gospel, it doesn't need to make sense. We don't need to be able to, be theologians. Right. We just need to understand the gospel, that God loves us and that he actually came to this earth. He walked around. He took the full brunt of what we deserved, placed it on his shoulders because he's the only one that could carry it, took it to a cross, and now we don't have to worry about anything because God has decided to forgive us. It's grace. We don't deserve it.
Yeah.
He just loves us. It's awesome. I know for a fact I don't know how he works. I don't know. His plans are greater than my plans. So I just kind of sit back, I relax, and I watch, and I look forward, and I like to just have these types of conversations with people. So back to Mission Matters. I love to hear what God's doing in the lives of people because I know he does amazing things in the lives of people. And I think the more conversations we can have like this, who knows, maybe it impacts somebody, and who knows what God's going to do with that person.
We hope you enjoyed today's podcast. We pray you've been engaged, encouraged, and equipped to more fully live out God's mission plan for your life. Don't forget to follow and share us on Facebook at facebook.com/missionmatters.org and sign up for our newsletter at missionmatters.org. Until next time, may you live passionately on mission for the glory of God.